The name Triassic was given by Frederick August von Alberti in 1934 for continental and shallow marine succession in Germany that in turn was subdivided into three natural units from older to younger, namely Bunter, Muschelkalk and Kuiper. Bunter is equivalent to lower Triassic or Scythian. Muschelkalk refers to the middle Triassic or Anisian, Ladinian, and Kuiper represents upper Triassic including Carnian, Norian and Rhaetian. Later on, full marine facies were studied in Alps and elsewhere and fine zonation of the Triassic rocks was proposed. The marine Triassic succession in India was developed in Tethyan zone of Himalaya, which is very well developed and fossiliferous. In peninsular India, non-marine succession of Triassic age was deposited in the rift valleys and grouped under Gondwana succession. The marine Triassic sedimentaries of the Tethys Himalaya essentially represents carbonate platform deposited showing considerable thickness indicating subsidence of the basin. Triassic system of Spiti is very well developed and is one of the best developed sequences on earth. In Spiti, it refers to Lilang group representing a complete sedimentary and faunal succession from basal to the upper part of the Triassic. The term Lilang was proposed by Stoliska after a village in Spiti of Himachal Pradesh, India. Fuchs made a significant contribution by preparing a geological map on 1:50,000 scale. It was studied in detail by Hayden, that is 1904 to 1908, and Diner 1912, whereas lithostratigraphic classification was proposed by Srikanthia. Bhargava 1987 divided Lilang group into 8 formations and described their detailed stratigraphy, microfacies and paleo environments. We will now describe each formation from older to younger briefly in the foregoing discussion. So, let us start with the basal unit called as Mikin formation. The Mikin formation overlies Gungri formation, and at the contact between the two units, a ferruginous band is present representing a hiatus surface. It is made up of cyclic repetition of carbonate and shales and is highly nodular and wavy in character. The rocks are mainly packstone and wegstone representing deposition on a shallow carbonate platform. The age is Scythian to Anisian. The next is Kaga formation. Kaga consists of grey-green calcareous shales with thin bands of carbonate. The characteristic feature is the presence of thin shelled bivalve called as Dornella, giving Ladinian age. Then is the Comule formation. This is made up of evenly bedded grey dolomite, calcareous shale and marl. Nodular bedding is very prominent with Dornella and Helobia as common fossils, giving an age range from late Ladinian to early Carnian. Next is Sanglung formation. This formation can be subdivided into 3 members, namely A, B and C. The member A is made up of grey shale, carbonate and siltstone arranged in a cyclic manner, and member B shows carbonaceous shales and sandstone showing coarsening uptrend. The member C, however, is mostly shale and sandstone with rare carbonates. The age of the Sanglung formation is mid-Carnian to early Norian. Next is Hangrang formation. It consists of light to dark dolomite containing brachiopods and few corals. There are evidences of small reef building activity also. The age is mid-Norian. Next is Alaror formation. It is essentially grey shales with minor carbonates having bivalves monotis in very common and gives an age range of mid-Norian. Next is Nunluka formation. Nunluka is a succession of sandstone, carbonate and shale arranged cyclically having late Norian age. The overlying formation is Kyoto formation. The lower part of the Kyoto is called as a paramember, which is a grey carbonate containing bivalve megalodon. The upper part is ferruginous, dark colored, showing few small reefs. Glauconite and hard ground is present in the upper part, giving Rhaetian age. Deposition of Hettangian or early Jurassic succession in Spiti took place on a carbonate platform or ramp, where supplies of the terrigenous clastic sediments fluctuate strongly through time. Coming to the paleogeography of Triassic. At the onset of the Triassic, the world's continents were assembled into single supercontinent called as Pangaea. The rest of the globe comprised a single vast ocean called as Panthalassa, with westward extending arm called as Tethys. This followed the late Paleozoic assembly of the continents when Laurentia, Asia and Gondwana collided along the Alleghenian Varescan Jura mountains chains. The early or nearly hemispherical Pangean supercontinent was encircled by subduction zones that dipped beneath the continents, while the Panthalasian and Tethyan plates carried island arcs and oceanic plateaus that were destined to become accreted to the continental margins. The supercontinent drifted northward and rotated clockwise throughout the Triassic. So, there was considerable latitudinal spread of the landmass, which was nearly symmetrical about the equator. However, no sooner had the supercontinent been assembled than the significant fragmentation began. Thus, Gondwana and Laurasia began to separate in late Triassic time with the onset of the rifting in the Gulf of Mexico basin. It was not until early Jurassic, though, that significant marine sedimentation took place in the nascent Atlantic Ocean basin. Let us now discuss the tectonics and sedimentation. At the broadest level, the tectonics of the Triassic Pangaea was simple. The accreted supercontinent was simply surrounded by convergent margins. However, these margins were actually complex belts of magmatic arcs and terrains moving in various directions to produce compressional and transpressional tectonics. Late Triassic Pangaea was in sight of these widespread extensional tectonism, especially the initial opening of the Atlantic Ocean basin by rifting of the North American and African plates. During the late Triassic, in the Tethys, North Atlantic and Arctic, multi-directional rift system developed. Rifting also took place along a zone of transform that extended well into the Gulf of Mexico basin and punctuated right by volcanism dominated the northern border of the western Tethys. This rifting in the northern Atlantic and Tethyan regions subjected western and central Europe to progressive regional extension, culminating in the development there of complex multi-directional system of troughs and grabens. During the early mid-Triassic, terminal thrusting took place along the entire Gondwana margin of Pangaea, which was followed in the Carnian by extension in southern and South America and eastern Australia. Most Triassic sedimentation took place in one of the three types of the basins, that is foreland, forearc or extension. Perhaps the best example of a Triassic foreland basin is the Karoo Basin of South Africa, a retroarc foreland basin originally formed by the collision of Paleo-Pacific Gondwana plates during the late Carboniferous. In Karoo Basin, 12 kilometers of the Carboniferous Jurassic red beds accumulated. Most of the Pangean marginal basins were part of an array arc trench system that surrounded much of the supercontinent. A good example is the complex Cordilleran basin of western and northern America, or in which deposition took place between an offshore island arc and the continental margin. In the western United States portion of this basin, that is 1.2 kilometers, siliciclastic red beds were shed to the northwest and interfinger with marine carbonates deposited in the arc trench system. Of the mostly late Triassic extensional basins, perhaps the best studied is the Newark Basin in the eastern United States. This was a dip slip dominated half graben in which something like 7 kilometers of mostly lacustrine upper Triassic, lower Jurassic sediments accumulated. There were also other types of Triassic extensional basins more complex than the Newark half grabens, such as those of the Germanic basin system of northwestern Europe. Now discuss the sea level. Early Mesozoic plate reorganization was apparently associated with the development of new seafloor spreading axes, which caused a general reduction of the ocean basin volume during the Triassic. Pangaea was very emergent, and because of its high freeboard, the Triassic was a time of relatively low sea level, which may be termed as a first order Pangean global low stand. After the major sea level fall of the latest Permian, sea level apparently rose through the much of the Triassic to peak during the Norian and then fall near the end of the period. There were, however, short significant falls in sea level, especially during the Ladinian and Carnian. There are generally 5 second order transgression regression cycles recognized in the Triassic. These encompass the local or the lower Triassic and middle Triassic and Carnian-Noarian-Rhaetian glacier Eustace could not have driven. Triassic sea level change, so its underlying cause must be tectonism. Indeed, a large amount of regional Triassic tectonism has been invoked to explain sea level changes in the Western Tethys and the Arctic Sverdrup Basin. Triassic sequence boundaries caused by local tectonism or global eustacy show a remarkable degree of synchrony across Pangaea, and 12 high-order boundaries of the global extent have been identified and attributed to the episodic major plate tectonic reorganization. Coming to the climate. Triassic climates were marked the transition from the late Paleozoic ice house to the mid-late Mesozoic greenhouse. During the Triassic, there were no glacial ages, and there is no evidence of the peak in ice boreal or austral realms. The Triassic was thus a time of increased warmth with relatively wide subtropical or dry desert belts at 10° to 30° latitude, as attested to by the Bode latitudinal distribution of Triassic evaporites. There was also strong east-west climatic asymmetry across Pangaea, with eastern Pangaea at least between latitudes 40° south and 40° north being relatively warmer and wetter because of the presence of Tethys and absence of an Atlantic Ocean to facilitate oceanic heat exchange, with the Pangaean landmass centered near the equator during the Triassic and a prominent Tethyan bight climate model suggests that seasonally it was monsoonal. Hence, there were only two seasons, wet and dry. The abundant rainfall was centered in the summer months, and there was little annual temperature fluctuations. During the northern hemisphere summer, the northern landmass would have been relatively hot, whereas the southern landmass would have been relatively cool. Moisture from Tethys would have pulled into the northern hemisphere low pressure cell, producing extensive rains, where the southern hemisphere high pressure cell would have remained relatively dry. During the southern hemisphere summer, this process would have occurred in reverse. Thus, seasonality across Triassic Pangaea would have alternating hemisphere-wide wet and dry seasons. The warm and high or highly seasonal climates, wet and dry, of the Triassic Pangaea are reflected in its biota. The Triassic saw an increase in the diversity of the gymnosperms, particularly of the xeromorphic scale-leaved conifers and seed ferns and cycadophytes with thick cuticles. Similarly, during the Triassic, in the evolution of reptiles, more water efficient putative uric acids excreting diapsids diversified at the expense of less water efficient, probably urea excreting synapsids.